When Temujin finally escapes slavery, for the first time in his brutal upbringing, he feels a sense of control. This newly found concept rapidly evolves into the evolution of a leader the world haven't seen before. He establishes himself as a fierce soldier and warrior. This becomes the rise and birth of Genghis Khan. He embarks on his journey to rule and unify the world. With his blood-soaked war tactics, he conquers tribes and wins countless of battles. On his mission to unify, he forms one of the biggest empires the world has ever seen. Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire have fascinated me for quite some time. Their brutal, effective and innovative military tactics, the great Khan's philosophy on life, and his achievement of unifying the nomadic tribes of Mongolia. There are a lot of great videos about the life of Genghis Khan and the Mongolian Empire, so I won't be diving too deep into the chronological history. I will instead try to tell some stories and facts that might not be as well known, but I still think there needs to be a little bit of an introduction to the great Khan. Genghis Khan was born with the name Temujin and was brought up in a nomadic tribe until he was 9, when his father was poisoned and the tribe left Temujin's mother with 7 children. They were forced into extreme poverty, scavenging and hunting for food. There are even stories that Temujin killed his own brother in a fight for food. During his years as a teenager, rival clans abducted both Temujin and his wife, and they became slaves for a time before he saw his opportunity to escape. Despite this absolutely horrific upbringing and childhood, by the time he was in his early 20s, he had established himself as a fierce warrior and leader. He began gathering an army of followers and supporters and went on to create alliances with the heads of crucial tribes. By the year 1206, he had successfully gathered the steppe tribes under his banner, gained his title as Genghis Khan, and turned his attention toward conquering the world outside of Mongolia. All of this was of course over a long period of time, so I'm skipping a bit in the timeline. At the height of their reign, the Mongols' empire had 23 million square kilometers of territory, making it the largest contiguous land empire in world history. Part of the Mongols' success was due to their military tactics. Genghis Khan had an eye for talent. One of the more famous examples of this came about during a battle in 1201 against the rival Talyut tribe. Genghis had a close encounter with death when his horse was shot with an arrow, brutally stopping them in their tracks. When he later demanded to know who was responsible, one soldier stood up and admitted to being the archer. Impressed by the archer's boldness and honesty, Genghis made him an officer in his army and later nicknamed him Jepi, or Arrow, in honor of their first meeting on the battlefield. Jepi would become one of the Mongols' greatest field commanders during their conquest in Asia and Europe. This is one of the many examples of Genghis Khan's belief in meritocracy, which enabled the Mongols to attract and retain talented individuals from diverse backgrounds. When they went to conquer a new territory, they gave their enemies a choice. They offered peace if they would join the empire, or else they would see wrath they couldn't imagine, slaughter, enslavement, as brutal as it could get. I've read stories about how the Mongols' army would set bodies on fire and throw them into cities, creating chaos and mayhem, resulting in a city that would be easier to conquer. Another story I heard about was that they would hurl bodies infected with plague into a besieged city and spread the Black Death, which, as you can imagine, was an effective tactic, although a scary one. You could call that an early version of biological warfare. If they, however, chose to surrender, soldiers, tribesmen, or people with certain set of skills were often incorporated into the Mongol army and treated as equals. Because of this, the Mongol army actually consisted of a minority of ethnic Mongols. Part of their genius of warfare came with their skills of horseback riding and the Mongolian bows. A lot of them grew up in a nomadic lifestyle, riding horses while hunting and herding. These skills transferred to warfare. The armies took great care of their horses since it was a crucial tool for them. Each soldier had 4 to 6 horses and would switch from one to another during campaigns to make sure that no horse was ridden to exhaustion. This enabled the army to travel insane distances, often covering 95 to 160 kilometers a day. This surely had a huge impact on why no other army could match them. On top of their masterful skills at horseback riding, they were masters of the Mongolian bow, simultaneously riding a horse and shooting a bow with precise accuracy. Some sources point to the fact that they could shoot up to a range of 500 meters. The bow on their horse was their primary weapon, and it resulted in an absolute agile and aggressive approach to the battles they fought. The Mongolian army truly had some innovative strategies, the way they would incorporate the best general and military leaders of the areas they conquered. This meant that they kept upgrading their army with the brightest minds and ideas. Their invasions spanned 22% of the world's surface, and in their time they killed approximately 40 million people, equivalent to 10% of the world's population at the time. They killed so many people that scientists can actually see a significant change in the carbon footprint of that time. Kinda crazy. Well, let's move on to some brighter stories. While a lot of the things mentioned about the Mongols are actually about the level of violence and brutality, Genghis and his people had a lot of interesting approaches to their way of living. For example, Genghis Khan accepted religious freedom in all of his territories. This is obviously a pretty uncommon philosophy surrounding religion considering these times. There are even stories about how he would invite people with different beliefs to discuss spirituality. Another interesting fact was their treatment of women. Throughout history, in countless cultures, women have obviously been oppressed and not treated as equals. And not to say the Mongols didn't rape and kill women, but the women who were part of their territory might actually have had it better than most other cultures in this time period. They were more independent, respected, used as trusted advisors, and could actually divorce their husband if they wanted to. I mentioned Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant, in my previous video. He also had a role to play in the Mongolian Empire. He gained entry into the court of the Mongol ruler at the time, Kublai Khan, a grandson of Genghis. Kublai took a liking to Marco Polo and found his intellect useful. He was sent on several trips to help manage the realm. To send information throughout their vast lands, they used a system called the Yam, which Marco Polo actually utilized as well. It is sort of an early version of an international postal system to quickly send messages. They would ride a horse quickly from place to place, and every city they arrived in would have a new horse with fresh energy, ready to take the next part of the trip. This resulted in an immense communication network throughout their empire. The riders could travel as far as 320 kilometers a day. Even to this day, the impact of the Mongol Empire remains unparalleled, as their innovative techniques and strategies made them a formidable force of power and a difficult enemy to defeat. The legacy of the Mongol Empire continues to be felt across the world. In Mongolia today, Genghis Khan is still seen as a hero. So here you go. That's a couple of stories about Genghis Khan and the Mongolian Empire. Some of the content in this video was from a passion project I created some years ago. A fictive title sequence named Genghis Khan. One of the sentences that motivated the visuals was "the brutality of unity." And I think that really encapsulates Genghis Khan. He was on a mission to unify the world around his empire, but if you went against him, brutality like you had never seen before would ensue. He and his empire was a paradox in that sense, but whether he was a hero or a villain is up to you to decide. He was and still is one of the greatest leaders the world has ever seen.